right. So that was a good talk from Holly. I think we're all going to get a lot out of that. It gives us a lot to take on. It's a good starting launching point. The next presenter is going to be Aaron Farmer with the retail coach. As you guys know, we went under contract with the retail coach. Was it November or December?
Prior, a little bit prior.
It was going prior. Yeah, it was.
October, I think.
Yeah. At the beginning of the fiscal year, however.
Yeah, that's worse.
And so I asked Aaron to come in today. He's been asking to talk to council and just his schedule and when we schedule meetings just kind of never jive. So he said he'd be available this afternoon to come in. He's going to talk about some of the things that he's done, where we are right now, and some of the things we're going to move forward. And again, just like with Holly, feel free to ask questions. Y'all all know Aaron Farmer, so Aaron Farmer with Retail Coach.
Thanks, Brian. So good to see all of you again. Real quick, I want to introduce Kyle Cofer. He's the project manager with us. I think many of you met Kyle before as well. But we're excited to be out here. Like Brian said, Brian and I talk on the phone a lot. But I've been telling him I want to get out and get in front of the council and mayor and just give you an update on what's happening here, what's going on from a retail development standpoint and those sort of things. So I'll just jump into this, but like Brian said, please just throw questions at me as I go. We don't need to wait to the end or anything like that. But real quick, just a recap who we are, the retail coach. So I am the project lead for this project. I grew up not far from the area, know the area well. Kyle has been on this project since day one as well. Really focused on this. We have other staff members back at the office, but the one thing I want to focus on is the new data. And if you remember when I was at your council meeting in January, we talked about how important it is, especially with a growing community like you, to really focus on new data and keeping fresh and new data, especially with the new housing data that's coming in. How important it is to keep that in front of the retail industry, but even more important is the developer industry. We need a developer to come in and put a substantial development together, and it might be 2 or 3 developers that make these things happen. You know, you can look at like the shops at Willow Park. Okay, now that was a local developer, but somebody came in and developed that, and it's turned into something really awesome. So we're not only talking about retailers today, we're talking about developers as well, and how important it is to kind of marry the two together. You know, we get retailers interested, and we've got to marry them with the developer that maybe can make that happen, or vice versa. So I want to talk about new data here really quick. I think that some of this stuff, I don't think it'll surprise you, but I think it'll excite you to see how these numbers continue to increase from population standpoint, housing standpoints, those sort of things. So it's probably kind of hard to see back there, but if you'll remember, we've determined what we're calling the Willow Park retail trade area. So this is where people are coming from to shop and eat in Willow Park. And we know they're coming outside of here. We know you get the traffic on 20, people stopping in, and as we build your retail base, you're going to have those coming in. Your population continues to increase. So the estimate that we have for 2019, and this number is as fresh as today. So these are new numbers as of today. Your trade area population is up to 49,703 people. So we're just below 50,000. I'm going to update this number again in a couple of weeks because I think we'll get above that 50,000 number with the new housing coming in. Average household incomes, obviously very strong, 126,000 within this retail trade area. Median household incomes, 97,000 within this retail trade area. Now, we're going to look at some of the school district data here in a second, and if you look at the Aledo ISD, for example, you look at their boundaries there, your median household income is about 110,000, so it's even higher. So the numbers just continue to increase with a good economy, with people moving in, whether it's Walsh Ranch, whether it's some of these other new developments, new housing developments that are coming in, the numbers continue to increase. One thing I did notice is your age continues to decrease. So that's something that, from a retail standpoint, is positive. Retailers, restaurants, developers, they like to see a little bit younger of a population come in because younger people spend their money more freely, is what typically happens. So we're down to 41 is the median age, and then 39 is the average age. I'd like to see both of those numbers get under 40, and I think just with the new housing and the housing stock that's out there, we're going to get there quickly, if not by next year. So this all looks good, but what we are doing to pitch Willow Park is we are focused on the trade area. Forget about the city limits population from a retail standpoint. They want to know what is that population that's coming in on a yearly basis, on a daily basis to shop here. So remember that number, 49,703 people. That's what we need to focus on. Yes, sir.
What area does that cover, that trade area there?
Yeah, so
exactly.
So we're it extends east, not quite to 820. So about a mile short of 820 is what we're including within that area there. What we found is that area over there, you've got white settlement that has some retail there. A lot of people don't like to go into white settlement or don't like to go into some of that area, so they're actually coming your direction, and that's what we've got to pitch to these new developers coming in and the retailers there. To the west, we're going into or including Hudson Oaks. So we're including Hudson Oaks that direction. They're going to come and shop and eat. They've got an H-E-B and they've got a few other things. H-E-B obviously just opened recently, but where else do they go? They're coming your way. Shops at Willow Park. We looked at a cell phone analysis there to really determine this data, where the trade area is coming from, and that's really where they're coming from. So to the south here, you'll see this kind of boundary on the south here right there. That's 377 where it kind of comes in, kind of catty corner right there. And then to the north, it's about this is Lakeside, for example, right here to the north. I can't remember the name of that thoroughfare right there. But that's the area that it encompasses. And I will tell you, we're going to continue to look at this because as we get new retailers, as new restaurants come in, even looking at Starbucks, for example, and Fuzzies and some of the other places that are a little bit newer that are coming in, I think this trade area is going to expand some in each direction, just with what's happening there. But that's what we're encompassing there. So it's greater than the school district limits as well, Brian.
So let's walk us through. What was the process that you arrived at those boundaries?
Absolutely. So we ran a cell phone analysis. Basically, every business that's in the community, we ran a cell phone analysis on it. So whether it was a grocery store or whether it was shops at Willow Park, we, for the last year, have been targeting and tracking who shops at these stores. So we can't only tell what zip code they're coming from. We can actually tell your specific household and where you're coming from. So we start plotting enough of those points on a map, and you start to see a kind of a polygon form there. And that's how we determined that trade area was basically of those shoppers and of those people that have stopped in Willow Park over the last year, 85% of them came from within this trade area right here.
Okay, so you assume the remainder was through traffic on the interstate then?
We can tell it was, yes.
Okay.
So we're looking at not only people that visited one time, we're looking at people that visited, let's say Brookshire's, for example, visited there 30 times. That's how we're determining the trade area. As long as you have a cell phone, which is most of us now, you walk into any store, it's kind of scary to think about, but you're being tracked. So if you get a phone call, an email, a text, you open an app on your phone, Google Maps, that's how we're coming up with this data.
Yep.
Now, how long have you been tracking this?
12 months.
12 months?
Yeah.
And during that time, do you see like the one-time traffic, like off the interstate,
We do.
going up, down, staying about the same?
So we were just talking about this, but we're running a new traffic count out on 20. We've got to wait on text dots most of the time, and it's usually every 2 years that they come out with data. So we've got some new numbers running right now as we speak. We're doing some traffic counts out there, but that number that we're seeing is increasing on a yearly basis.
You have an estimate of what you think? Educated guess?
No, really high.
So what was the last traffic count number?
That's a good question. Will you pull up the retail market profile? I'll have Kyle pull that up here so we can look at it, but it continues to increase.
So basically, we got two sets of data. We got some people that are consistent, live in the area, and then one-time visits that are just happen to be coming through town.
Exactly. In our experience in doing this for a number of years is retailers and restaurants that want to locate in Willow Park, they're going to be interested in that one-time traffic coming through, but what they're mostly concerned about is this primary consumer. On the worst of the worst days, what does that look like? And that's what this trade area looks like. They know they're going to pull 49,000 people in there.
All right.
So this is the key. Going forward, when we met with a couple of those groups out in Fort Worth 6-7 months ago, we were pitching them the retail trade area, and that's what gets them interested. It's not the city limits population. Now I want to share with you a couple other things coming from Templeton Demographics that did the school district study there. Total district population. So trade area is 49,703 people. If we look at just the school district population, we're looking at about 28,785 that live within that boundary area there. Total school enrollment was about 5,718. But what was really interesting is that percentage growth, 20.9% over a 5-year period. So you might be asking, why are we looking at school district data? Retailers pay heavy attention to this. They pay heavy attention to what does that school district look like? Is it growing? You know, those are important things, as well as the new home activity. Now, this is the key for Willow Park. Is what do those new homes look like? Not what they look like, but how many of them are coming in? So you'll see on the map here, this is 2007 on the left, and this is 2018 on the right. And what you'll see is you'll see annual home starts in blue, and you'll see annual closings in red. In 2018, we're at 641 for the new home starts for 2018. That's what retailers want to see. With all of these new projects coming online, new housing is absolutely key. We're going to talk about it in a minute, but we had some conversations with Home Depot. We had some conversations with Lowe's and some of the grocery stores, organic type style grocery stores. First question they asked is, what does the new housing look like? That's what we're interested in. They had heard about Walsh Ranch. They had heard about some other things coming in. This is what they're really focused on is the new housing starts. So I wanted to point that out because as we continue forward, as we recruit on your behalf, we have shifted, and it's really been from day one, but really even put more of a focus on the new housing starts because that seems to be what is getting the retailers, the developers interested in going forward. Just
Do you only do the new housing development in Willow Park, or do you not do the surrounding, like say Walsh Ranch? Like
This,
no, trade area.
Oh, the
We're
whole trade.
looking at the retail trade
Okay.
area. Right here, this is just new home. This is new home starts in the ISD, but we're also
Oh,
looking at the
okay.
trade area as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key because again, that's what they want to see is that trade area, and that's what's driving, what's going to help drive the new development in Willow Park. So I want to flip forward here real quick and talk about, and I'm not going to go through this in detail real quick. I don't know if you can read it or not, but we ran that leakage analysis, that gap analysis to find out how much money is leaving Willow Park on a yearly basis and being spent outside of the community, whether it's towards Fort Worth or whether it's out in Weatherford, wherever people might be going. Some of the categories that stood out to me, full service restaurants, for example, and again, I'm repeating some information for you. $57 million leaves this retail trade area and is spent in either direction related to restaurants, $57 million. So I throw that out there because we are starting to have some interest from restaurants. Another one that stood out to me, which is not on this screen here, but was grocery stores. And we had about a $25 million leakage in groceries. So you do have a butcher's, but we all know people are leaving town for certain things. And we're 25 million plus is going outside of that for groceries. So
Outside of Willow Park or outside of the retail, the area?
outside of the retail trade area.
Okay, so
Yeah.
like
So
anything
it's
that's...
including Hudson Oaks.
Right, okay,
Yes.
that was,
Yeah.
I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure that we...
So leaving the retail trade area. So we're taking that information, again, in a couple slides here I'm going to talk about who we're talking to from a grocery standpoint to fill those gaps. But this is what they want to see. They want to see some quantifiable numbers to say if we were to locate a store here, what are our sales going to be? Do we have enough population to support it?
So a store like HEB that just came in Hudson Oaks, what are their annual revenues? Do you know what they?
So it's a store of that size, and I drove by there the other day just to kind of get a look at it. You're looking at 50 million coming in and out.
1.5 or 5.0? Would you say?
50.
50 million.
Now, that's,
You're looking at about a
That's not
million.
tax.
You're
So
looking
that's-
at about $1 million a week, but that's not
That's all
necessarily
tax.
Right,
yes.
right.
that's,
taxable.
yeah.
Yeah.
But 50
That's
million
gross,
is total
okay.
sales. Yeah.
Yeah.
And really in the Metroplex, greater DFW area, to be a successful grocery store, you have to roughly do about $1 million in sales per week. Is what they look for to be successful. So.
And do you have a breakdown of typically what is taxable, non-taxable in a store like that? Is it 10 to 90?
I can get into it's more like 70 to 30 with an HEB because they have a lot of outdoor items towards the front of the store and those ones. So it's typically 70-30, 70 taxable or 70 non-taxable, 30 taxable.
calculator out now.
Nope, that's what Aaron's for.
So yeah, so there's very good potential here. There's a lot of potential here, and I'm sure you've heard that for a while. And if you've lived here for a while, hey, it's just a matter of time before the development gets here and those sort of things. But with really, I say Walsh Ranch because that name comes up every single day. With what's happening there, people are starting to understand how big of a development that is. Now is the time for these things to happen. So the other part of what we do, besides just putting the data together, is the actual recruitment. So when I say recruitment, that means we're calling on the retailers and restaurants. We're emailing the retailers and restaurants. We're setting up meetings at events. Kyle and I and the rest of our team were just in Las Vegas at the International Council of Shopping Centers Convention. We have meetings with specific retailers and restaurants. So we are doing the recruitment there. What I want to share with you is everything that we have put together based on Willow Park is customized for the retailer. So let's say it's Schlotsky's or let's say it's somebody else like that. It's going to have their logo on it to show them that there is a need, a desire by the community. It's going to show them that you've taken the time. Willow Park, the city has taken the time to go out and customize these packages just for them. So specific responses, and I think some of this will excite you. De La Vega development. If you don't mind, raise your hand if you were at that meeting in Fort Worth. I know Amy, yeah, okay, so I know the three of y'all, or four of y'all were at that meeting, and it was a pretty good meeting. He seemed very interested. De La Vega is a large shopping center developer. I don't know if you know the Citadel development, so that's at Fort Worth and the Alliance Town Center right there, kind of by Presidio, if you know where the development is with Costco and all of that. These guys, De La Vega, they're the ones doing the Citadel development, which is just right there. They are very interested in Willow Park. He drives through Willow Park on his way to Lubbock, I think is what he said, on a regular basis. He visited in April, and he's coming back again sometime July, August timeframe. So I'm going to be working with Brian, trying to schedule all of that to do a site tour and those sort of things. But he's big on the development. He sees the potential. He sees the potential for some large shopping center to happen. He thinks, and what he brought up to us was maybe something like a Kroger Marketplace that is maybe not right there in the immediate area, but could be very successful. So that's a really good developer response. I'm on the phone with him weekly. He's asking me questions. He's asking those sort of things. So that's good news there. Lowe's and Home Depot. I mentioned both of them. They're not really expanding right now. To be honest with you, if you look at who is expanding in the industry, Lowe's and Home Depot are not doing much expansion, but there's talk of them doing a little bit smaller size stores and expanding again. So we've stayed in front of them. They've asked us to keep them aware. The one thing they asked us about were the new housing starts, because they said that's what intrigues them, that's what interests them, which makes sense. Natural grocers. So most recently, we helped put a natural grocers in Keller. If everybody knows where Keller is, it's very successful there. The same broker that did that deal is talking to us about sites in Willow Park. Does everybody know what natural grocers is? Yeah.
No. Huh.
Okay, so it's
I've had
an
a lot of
organic
people ask me.
type grocery store. Not quite. I like Sprouts better personally. I'm a bigger fan of Sprouts, but it's along that same line, if you will. They're expanding rapidly into Texas. We actually helped them down in the Hill Country, just open one up in Fredericksburg also, if you know where Fredericksburg is. And then also Sprouts. They are not quite ready to come to Willow Park because they do not want to come do a standalone site. Mm-hmm. They want to be part of a larger development there. So what we have to do with Sprouts is, and Sarah, I'm trying to think of her last name, I think it's Sarah Klein is who we're working there with there. She wants to, as soon as a developer kicks off, I put her in touch with De La Vega. They want to be part of that. So they love the incomes. They won't look anywhere with less than 100 to 110,000 in incomes, and you're already there. So we're in touch with them as well. Maybe not as exciting, but Burger King. We're working with Burger King on a site in Willow Park on a couple of different possibilities there. Restaurant Brands International is who we're working with there. I mentioned Kroger Marketplace. So we've talked to their broker, Wade Nelson. They're another one, not expanding rapidly right now. They're about to expand, about to start doing some things again, just to stay competitive with H-E-B moving into the DFW market. Kroger doesn't like that. Kroger's owned this market for a while, so they're about to get in the mix again. We're working with a broker, and we're also working with De La Vega, who is pushing to get Kroger Marketplace to do something. So I wanted to mention that. Another one that came up to us, we were having at that retail conference we were at just a couple of weeks ago. Young Brands came up to us, so they've got a couple of different concepts under there. They came to us and asked us what sites are available in Willow Park. We want to be there. So we're working on that. Petco is another one that we've talked to. They need a larger development. If you notice Petco's, they never go in by themselves. It's never a standalone building. It's got to be a larger development. So they'd like to be in Willow Park once that power center starts to come to works. So where this all plays in is we can go to De La Vega and we can say, look, we've got Sprouts that has interest, we've got Natural Grocers, we've got Petco, we've got these 5 that are interested. It's a lot easier to make a development happen. It's a lot easier to put money down on a deal and actually see something happen when you have some brokers or when you have some retailers ahead of time. So that's you see why I said we've got to go after retailers and developers at the same time, so we can kind of bring them all together there. And then the kicker for all of this, we got a call 2 weeks ago, and we got a call from Henry S. Miller, and what can I think of? Frank Bullock. Yeah, Frank Bullock. So Kyle interned for Frank Bullock at Henry S. Miller in Dallas. Known Frank for a long time. He called us and he said, "Hey, I need a site in Aledo." And I said, "Well, you're not going to find a site in Aledo. You need a site in Willow Park." So we pulled up the map and showed him, and he has an entertainment user. So it's a movie theater concept with, and you got my email about that, right? With, I think it was laser tag and bowling, and you've seen those entertainment complexes going in.
Similar to what Film Alley is in Weatherford.
It is, yeah. So he hasn't shared the name with us yet on who it is, but he says it's a pretty quality group. He said they've got 3 or 4 locations in the DFW marketplace right now. So we got a call from him. That would be a perfect anchor for a larger development like this. So the first person I called was De La Vega. I'm familiar with the project that De La Vega is working up in McKinney at Custer Road and 380 in McKinney, if you know that area. So southeast corner there. Their development is based around a large anchor, which is an entertainment user. So within the last week or 2, I know that Frank has talked to De La Vega. So it's all kind of starting to come together. So that's from a retailer and developer response standpoint. This is kind of who we're talking to right now. We're reaching out to others. We've gotten no's from some others that we've reached out to as well. It just didn't feel like it was the right time. We reached out to some like Pet Marketplace, Jason's Deli. I'm still pushing on Jason's Deli.
I am too.
If we can, he said, I'm getting emails from 2 different people. I said, well, good. We'll keep emailing you until it's, but I'm still working with Greg Messina on that one to see, if we can get. I think if we had a larger development, then he would jump on that quicker. There are some others that we've reached out to that are just now is not the right time. We're not expanding, those sort of things. And then we continue to go after other developers. So I mentioned De La Vega, but another group that we're meeting with and have had meetings with is Bequero Ventures out of Fort Worth. They've done a lot of development in the greater Fort Worth area, so we're in touch with them as well. But that's what the recruitment process looks like. It's building relationships, having phone calls. Our goal is, can we get them to the market? Just like Frank was able to come to the market. If we can get them to see the traffic, if we can get them to see, what's happening in Willow Park, even the shops. I want to drive them out there and see how busy that place is, especially on a Friday, Saturday time period, and during the week too. That's how we get these things to happen. So, from a recruitment standpoint, things are starting to really pick up even quicker than they had been. But I wanted to kind of mention those to you and kind of let you know who we're hearing from right now. Yes, sir.
A lot of positives. Have you heard any negatives as far as our area, other than somebody just not expanding?
Yeah, so we have heard it, and it's not necessarily a negative on your community per se, but a negative in that, hey, if we go there, we're going to locate in Weatherford, just because there's that large clustering of retail and restaurants there. So we've heard that from quite a few, or I don't want to say quite a few, but we've heard that from a few so far. Is, hey, if we decide to locate on this 20 corridor, we're going to go to Weatherford. A couple of people have referenced HEB. And in some sense, I guess we're competing with Hudson Oaks. But I really don't, I feel like you have a better story to tell even than Hudson Oaks because they are even closer to Weatherford, if that makes sense. And, you know, there was hopes that there was going to be more development to happen around that HEB, and there were talks of that to bring others, and it's not really coming to fruition from what we're seeing right now. So, I mean, from a negative, what we had to deal with from day one is getting people to understand where Willow Park is. To be completely honest with you, I would bet 90%, Kyle, of the retailers and restaurants that we reached out to said, where is Willow Park? Which, you know, unless they were local, they just didn't know where it was. So I think, and I know y'all are going through, you know, some new branding processes and those things, and I think with us doing their outreach there, they're not asking that question nearly as much anymore. You know, just with like with that Trans-Western or the Henry S. Miller developer, we had to say, look, there's not a site in Melito for you. The site's here on Interstate 20. This is Willow Park. So that's, I mean, from a negative standpoint, that's kind of what we've heard. You know, once we show them the new housing, that's what tends to sell it is the new housing numbers.
Does that kind of help us tell the story? Because it's kind of like, we don't know where Willow Park is, but how come there's all these new housing starts?
Well, it gives us a reason to explain to them where Willow Park is, instead of them just saying, no, we're not interested. They can't even say that yet because they didn't know where you were. So it gives us a chance to really sell you even harder. But then the housing starts, yes, being able to show that. I mean, Walsh Ranch, again, comes up on a daily basis because of, I mean, there's news articles galore about the potential there and the development that's going to have. So we've just got to keep building on that as much as we can.
Is that probably the biggest economic driver we have, is Walsh?
That and the traffic on 20. You know, but the traffic on 20 is only, you know, that works well over fast food restaurants and drive-thrus and those sort of things. So Walsh Ranch is good, 20 is good. But I think, too, just getting the story across that your trade area is 50,000 people, those are probably the three biggest drivers.
On the traffic, can you, you know, break down, you know, when the most traffic is? You know, obviously it's like in the mornings, people like to be able to try and compartmentalize the commuters.
We can. So the way that and I wish I could pull it up here, but the way that our system works is we can pick different points in the community. And we have a partnership with a group they're out of Israel, but they're very good at tracking and studying and understanding people. And we can take a specific area and we can not only tell what is that daily traffic count, we can tell what is the hourly traffic count, we can tell which direction they're going, we can do a combined traffic count there. So when I say we've got traffic counts running, it's not just on 20. We're running them throughout the community to be able to tell commuter traffic and what that looks like, where they're going throughout the day.
So that would be advantageous also to have the Walsh traffic.
Yep.
You know, like how much of it's going back to the west at night on the weekends, you know, and if they had options to the east, which is closer.
Yeah, and again,
I mean, to the west, going east, excuse me.
And that's why we're not just focused on the city.
Yeah.
We're looking at that trade area. And
Yeah, we've got to have that trade area.
So we can get traffic counts in that whole area.
So when we, sorry about that.
No, go ahead.
So back in January, when you were here, you said that our overall leakage was in the $400 million range and change.
Yeah.
Is that increasing? Is it staying the same? Or is, you know, where do you see that overall going?
So I haven't run a new analysis because usually that data is good for about 12 months. With the new housing that's coming in, I would say it's increasing. I don't know the specific number yet because we haven't run the analysis again, but on a daily basis, it's increasing just because the sheer amount of people you have coming into the trade area.
Okay, and then when you break that down, those numbers down, does that drive who you're actually talking to, or is that kind of you're seeing who's communicating and you try to match it into, I mean, are the numbers driving who you're communicating with, or is it the other way around, or what?
It's a mixture of both, to be honest with you. So, for example, there's just certain categories that are not expanding right now in the industry. So you look at some of those categories that are just not doing anything. So let's use like a larger metro area, for example, bookstores. They've become a thing in the past. So, you know, in the past when we would have on a prospect or a match list, you know, Barnes & Noble would show up, or Borders, or some of these. Well, those are a thing in the past. So they're all there. So the numbers do help drive that, but we also have to look at what categories are expanding. So, you know, sporting goods, for example. There's a couple of sporting goods players out there. There's Dick's Sporting Goods and Academy, basically, in this market here. Well, we all know Academy's over in Weatherford, and you you've got one the other direction as well. And Dick's, you've got one over in Fort Worth also. Well, there's really not any other sporting goods per se retailers that might locate. There's very few in the mix there. So even though we might have a huge sporting goods leakage, there's not a lot of prospects we can add to the list for that right now. Does that make sense? So the industry's a little weird right now in that, every day you have somebody announce that they're closing stores, but then the next day you have somebody announce they're opening stores. So that's what we try to do, is just try to keep up with that. Good example though, I did look before we left, the leakage in grocery, it has increased since HEB opened, which has only been, 2 months maybe?
Not even that.
Not that?
Yeah, 2 months.
Okay, so 2 months, you're seeing more leakage happen there. So I bet if we were to go talk to the Brookshire's manager, your numbers at that Brookshire's are down also.
Oh, yeah.
Just because
It's like a
HEBs
ghost town in
Yeah,
there.
exactly. So that's why we've got to combat that with maybe somebody like a Kroger Marketplace, a Sprouts, a Natural Grocer, something like that to help stop that bleeding or leakage that's occurring.
I hear a lot of people wanting a Natural Grocer or Sprouts.
So, we're talking to them. I will say we have a very good relationship with their broker. James Craddock is the broker for Natural Grocers, and gosh, we work with them on a pretty regular basis. So,
You mentioned roughly 57 million in loss in restaurants.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's full service restaurants.
So, 57 million is full service.
So, without disparaging Yum Brands or Burger King or anything else, what are you doing to actively fill that void with a Chili's or better upscale?
Yeah. So what we're doing is we're focused on developers, because what you'll notice nowadays is Chili's, any of the casual sit-down restaurants, they will not just locate by themselves. They need some kind of clustering, or they need to be part of some kind of larger development or something like that. So that's why we're going after the developers, is because if we can land a developer, it's going to be a lot easier to get those pad sites out front, just like you have in Alliance Town Center, and just like you have in Weatherford even, in front of kind of the Target Center and all of that you have there. So we're going after restaurants. We're talking to them at every conference we go to, but that's what we need, is we need that anchor, that larger development to help support the rest of this.
What kind of acreage is De La Vega interested in?
Yeah, so what we had talked about originally was somewhere in the 15 to 20 acre range.
Okay.
What they were wanting to put down. And what I've seen them do in the past, and other developers as well, because I'm not putting all the eggs in the De La Vega development basket.
Yeah.
But what we've seen work there is a 15 to 20 acre development is like a phase 1. And then they have the ability to do a phase 2 and a phase 3.
Okay.
And the reason for that right now, so years ago, a couple of years ago, 5-10 years ago, you would see these developers come in and pull down 100 acres and go ahead and pull it all down at once. Well, with the fall of a lot of these big box retailers, there's not as many to go around anymore. So they're coming in and taking off smaller chunks at a time to make that happen. So 15 to 20 acres is what we had talked about originally for something like that to happen there.
So, has anybody given you direction as far as what type of businesses we're looking for?
So Brian and I have talked about that extensively, about what the opportunities are, or what the community would like to see from a standpoint of those sort of things. What I've heard, even talking to just some community members and stakeholders when I go around, a little bit upper end, or not upper end, but a little bit nicer retailers and restaurants. I had Burger King and I had Yum Brands on there, and those don't seem to excite anybody, obviously. It's that next level. It's the casual sit-down restaurants, even some of the more regional, some of the unique retailers and restaurants. Grocery store comes up, everybody I talk to. And I feel bad saying that because you do have a Brookshire's, but you have to look at the numbers and you have to look at people who are leaving. But that's casual sit-down restaurants is something we had talked about, but just kind of a meeting place, a shopping center, kind of like what you already have with shops at Willow Park, but a little bit to the next level, if that makes sense, and even maybe some mixed use thrown into there is what we've looked at.
Because you have Walsh Ranch to the east,
Yep.
right? And your drivers are going to be the upscale because of,
Absolutely.
your immediate income is enough to drive some really high-end restaurant types, right? The other thing is, and you mentioned sporting goods, what about Cabela's or Bass Pro Shop? Or
Sure.
something like
Yeah, and unfortunately, they're not expanding right now.
They're not?
Since Bass Pro bought Cabela's, I mean, I like that
Yeah.
idea. I like where you're going there. Something like that, though. Something that's a destination, unique,
Right.
that's going to pull people that direction. Even pull people from Weatherford that
Yes.
will come this way. That's what we've talked about there. Well, I'll be honest, we haven't talked to Cabela's or Bass Pro yet, just because they're not doing much. Now, there's some other concepts that are out there, like Field and Stream is a new concept. I don't know if y'all have seen that anywhere. Gander has started doing their stuff again. Gander Outdoors used to be Gander Mountain. Now they're coming to Gander Outdoors.
They're shutting down though, aren't they?
So, and now they're going to be bought again. So the question will be what they happen there. But those types of, I mean, we're looking at that. My hope is, I mean, the market hit an all-time high today, hit an all-time high yesterday, and then hit an all-time high again today. What we're hearing is the retailers aren't really worried about the market. They're actually excited about it. They're going to start expanding again. So that hopefully bodes well for some of the ones like you mentioned, like Cabela's and Bass Pro, that, you know, they see the market's not going away. The other thing that is a kind of a telltale sign for me, Amazon. So a lot of the changes in the retail industry are because of Amazon. They're because of online sales and those sort of things. Well, Amazon is getting into the brick and mortar game. If y'all haven't seen that, they now have, you know, standalone stores. They now have bookstores. They're getting into it. So to me, that's a sign that the online sales are going to slow. They're going to continue to grow, but what we're seeing is they're slowing, and that growth rate is slowing. So that bodes well for the standalone brick and mortar type retailers as well.
Now, do you guys do anything with industry, or are you just strictly retail?
So we're mostly retail. We have had some conversations with, I know, the hotel groups you're working with. So when we say retail, it's typically retail, restaurant, hotel, and entertainment.
No, because you mentioned, the reason I asked, you mentioned Amazon.
Sure.
So distribution, you know, a distribution center or something
Or
like that.
fulfillment center or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've been lucky, and I say lucky, but a lot of times the site selectors or the real estate people that do the stores, the traditional stores, they also do the site selection for distribution centers and those sort of things. So I think back to a project in Longview. If you're familiar with Longview, I'm not going to excite anybody, but we were successful at landing a Dollar General, distribution center. And the reason we were able to land that is we were helping Dollar General locate stores throughout Longview. And they said, you know what, we've got to have a distribution center. So now it's the biggest Dollar General distribution center in the state of Texas. And it opened about 6 months ago. So we do have the ability to kind of have those conversations because we are talking to these companies. Amazon, you know, they've got a fulfillment center in Haslett that fulfills most of your region already, but identifying some of those other types like that could be successful, we can definitely focus on that too.
Walk me through, in a flow chart, if you will, how do you take 15 to 20 acres, 50 acres, whatever it may be, of raw land, with assuming all utilities are there, you know, water and sewer,
Sure.
streets not so much. Walk me through how we go from that raw land to a ribbon cutting of Uncle Julio's.
So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to find a developer to come in and do that. Now, you know, a lot of times it's hard for developers or anybody just to visualize a 15, 20 acre greenfield space that it has development. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll lay out or we'll draw a site plan. Okay. So coming up with a site plan, even if it's hypothetical to start with, at least it's a site plan. So I've started working on a couple of 15 to 20 acre site plans just so we have something to start with. So that's what we got to have first is a site plan. If we get a developer online, what they'll do is they'll typically put a property like this under contract. Mm-hmm. They'll put it under contract, let's say 90 to 120 days. And what they'll do in that 90 to 120 days is they'll go after these retailers we've provided to them, and then they'll go after other retailers and restaurants to see if they can get letters of intent or contracts signed. And if they can get those retailers, those restaurants on board, then they'll close that deal and they'll start working on it. So that's kind of the process there. You're looking at probably right now, depending on the size of the development, but probably 18 months to get a development of that size, you know, day one to completion. So that's why time is of the essence.
So it's day one of the site plan?
Day one of the break ground.
Okay, so when you got the site plan, you make the sale, you talk to De La Vega or whomever,
Yeah.
and then obviously they got to try to buy that property.
Sure.
I mean, the city doesn't own property, so it's not like we can just,
Absolutely.
we can't give it away to them or whatever. So they got to negotiate the sales price, and they get their clients in, and then you break ground, you start, a year and a half later, you're up and running.
Yep, and if it's a smaller project, they can be done in 6 months to 12 months, depending on what that building looks like, you know, how the construction's done, those sort of things.
Now, I wish Norm was here for this question, but how long does it take for the engineering for those ramps?
For TxDOT,
Yeah,
it's not
once
the
they start it.
it's not the engineering, it's the money.
Funding.
Yeah.
It's the funding with TxDOT. From the time they start to the time they finish.
If they have the money and it,
I'll up to you this. Micah's turnaround was supposed to start in February of 18.
They're going to supposed to start a year or two before that.
Yeah.
Well, they did a pre-con in February of 18. They're going to finish in February of 20, and that's for a
Okay.
simple Texas turnaround. I would assume 12 to 18 months for depending. If they got to put a retaining wall in somewhere,
Yeah.
that might be a little bit more.
yeah,
Usually
I mean-
about 2 years.
to about 2 years. You got the funding, here, I got the money in the bank, and then,
Yeah.
okay.
Does, what's the developer's name again? De La Vega?
De La Vega.
Yeah, do they actual build vertical, or do they just put the stuff in the ground, utilities and streets?
It's a mixture. I mean, they're working on some big deals in Dallas right now. I mean, they'll hire a construction firm, but they've got most of that in-house.
How can we make ourselves more attractive? Do we show them, hey, here's 70 acres of land, or here's 30 acres of land, or?
Well, I know you and I have talked about pitching them specific properties, and that's why we've started to put a focus on, hey, here are the properties that we think make the most sense for retail development. I mean, it kind of sounds crazy, but kind of doing their work for them, you know, finding the site for them, finding the retailers for them, that's what's going to speed up the process, is kind of doing it that way. I think what y'all are doing, like from a branding standpoint and trying to get more out there a little bit, I think that's all helping great. I think going to these trade shows like we talked about, so y'all went to ICSC in Fort Worth last year. There's a Retail Live conference coming up in August that you know about. Just being out there and being present so they know where Willow Park is out there, that you're there, you're serious about recruitment. That's what's going to make you more appealing. I mean, the incomes are there. Population growth is there. So just getting that to them out there, you just got to work a little bit harder than, let's say, you know, a Fort Worth or somebody that's already got all of this development.
So that,
taking off like
after you
that.
get the first one, the second one's a little easier.
Oh, yeah.
The third one's a little bit easier.
Yeah,
Just get in the first one.
It is. I mean, it's a domino effect when it comes to retail. You know, once one starts to fall, they all, you know, typically do. And they like to cluster together. If you notice that, you know, retailers and restaurants, they don't like to, a lot of them don't like to stand by themselves. They like to be clustered together in an area, in a region, and, you know.
Business drives business.
Yep. That's why, I hate to use them as an example, but Weatherford, you look at Weatherford, and a lot of their retail, a lot of their restaurant is clustered together right there, because they know one feeds off the other and those sort of things.
So how, from a incentive standpoint, are these all real retailers, all and developers for that matter, all looking for incentives, or what are they looking for?
Sure, and that's a good question. I'll tell you right now, we're not huge fans of incentives at the Retail Coach unless it's really going to drive new sales to your community, drive new retailers, and really increase your sales tax dollars tremendously. A development such as a 15 to 20 acre development like that would definitely be something I think that they would request incentives on. Some of the smaller projects, not necessary a lot of times, and I probably wouldn't recommend incentivizing some of the smaller projects unless, again, they're going to have some kind of impact on your community, a pretty big impact on your community. But we're seeing right now sales tax abatement, sales tax rebates, so 380 agreements are pretty popular right now. I'm not a fan of giving cash to anybody or doing anything like that. You can get creative with, you know, TIFs and TERS and other communities. You see that a lot. But what I like to do is, let's say there does a developer comes in and requests a certain amount of incentives from the community. What I like to do is I like to go to other developments that developer has worked on and see what have other communities given them. And, you know, if we see they've done something successful in another community, but they were only giving a 5-year, $100,000 sales tax rebate, why are they asking for a 10-year, $1 million sales tax rebate? We like to go around and kind of see what's needed in those cases. So it's all dependent. In our opinion, you've got to look at how's it going to increase your sales tax? Is it the right kind of retail? Is it the right kind of restaurants you want to see? Is it going to help bring in, other retail and other restaurants?
Is there a place consolidated that, a website or anything that shows what these communities, from a sales tax and incentive standpoint, what the numbers look like? Is that all consolidated anywhere in one location that's available, or is that?
I think we've got a presentation that I can send over to Brian to get out that has a lot of that information in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
General rule of thumb is you take their total sales and we get 1% of that.
Yeah. So I think we've got it laid out what some other communities have given and kind of what are the popular incentives right now and what you're seeing happen the most often.
And we have not given any incentives other than the TERS with Kyle.
Yeah.
We have not really incentivized any businesses to come to Willow Park as such. I don't know how much longer you can go with, I guess if we don't really have to give any away if we don't really want to, but I'm pretty sure at some point they're going to be asked and we'll need to consider.
Yeah, I mean, you have to look at competition in the area,
Yeah.
and you're competing with communities that are incentivizing. And, as much as I hate to get into the incentive game, it's just a way of life.
What does Patrick give away?
Yeah, I was going to question. What do they have to
Sales tax
incentivize?
abatement's all I know about. Sales tax rebate.
So he does a 380 with XYZ and...
Yeah, and I can that's all public information.
Yeah, it's all.
So I've got, we subscribe to a publication that they have a copy of all the public incentives, and I can pull those and see what they are.
Eric had a question.
Yes. Which type of businesses are best to bring in the highest sales tax, and which businesses should we look to maybe not try to bring in that might not bring much sales tax at all?
Yeah, so traditional retail, so traditional like general merchandise stores, your Targets of the world, your Walmarts of the world, they tend to bring in the most sales tax. Those types, Costco's of the world, yeah, they seem to bring in. They seem to bring in the most sales tax. Least sales tax would be something like a restaurant. Even though it's sexy and everybody wants to get some of these casual sit-down restaurants, a BJ's Brew House or something like that. In reality, they're not bringing in a lot of sales tax. So that's, it kind of looks like grocery. You heard about that. Grocery, about 30% of their sales are sales tax related. So even though you get this huge retailer, they might not bring in a lot of sales tax, but they bring in a lot of peripheral development around them. That will increase sales tax.
Okay.
So from a demographic point of view, what kind of infrastructure should we be focusing on to help bring in businesses?
So as far as...
Give you an example, you talked about the age.
Sure.
It was 40 or 41.
41, yeah.
And it's going down,
Right.
right? So now we're getting into the millennial
Yeah.
area, right? So millennials like Teslas and
Yeah.
electric cars and stuff. So do we need to have, those electric charging stations, a Tesla dealership, or?
We're still in Texas, man. Have you seen all the big envoys and
You get a third way down Paso or go drive.
Hummers?
Millennials is your biggest market as far as economic development.
Yeah, and actually,
Anything.
I don't have it on here, but your millennials are your fastest growing sector in Willow Park, actually.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No doubt.
That's a good question. I don't know how to answer that just right off the bat here. I'll have to, if it's okay with you, let me go back and, because I don't want to just throw something out there. I like that question. I like where you're going with that.
That is a good question.
So you said that about the
Yeah.
millennials.
Sure.
So, but millennials are more, they don't really, they're more online shoppers. They're not going to the grocery store and I'm going to cook my food. I want to go out to eat my food more because I don't want to cook.
Yeah.
They're more convenience instead of.
You're right. So it's interesting though. We did a study. We've got this. I teach the basic economic development course to all new economic development directors in Texas. We referenced a study. I'll put that as part of the package I sent over to you. What was interesting was they did a recent study on millennials, and even though they do the searching online and those sort of things, right now you're seeing where they actually want to have it enhanced and they want to try it out and do this. So that's why Best Buy has come back. Remember Best Buy was closing stores? Well, now they're back. And it's because the millennials are wanting to, even though they might do all their research online, and I buy a lot of stuff online, other people buy a lot of stuff online too, you're actually starting to see it come back a little bit more to what it was. Now, you're right. As a country, it was 2016 was the first time that we actually spent more going out to eat than we do at the grocery store. So that's what's caused a lot of these grocery stores to not expand as rapidly as they had been. But that bodes well for getting restaurants, especially the quick casual restaurants are the ones that are expanding rapidly. So they're not fast food, but the Chipotles of the world, the Panera Breads, those types are what I could see kind of happening in your community, and that would bode well with the millennials.
Well, and restaurants are mainly a hook for
Yeah.
the retailers around them, because you can't go to a restaurant online, but if you go in person and like, hey, let's, you know.
And that brings me back to the infrastructure question. You know, high-speed internet.
Yeah,
like
that's good.
Yeah,
I see where you're going.
I
with that
see now.
And
Yeah,
that's-
we do need that.
I'll kind of put together a list of those things that you would look for there too.
Coming out this way.
Because the infrastructure you need for even some of these quick service restaurants is different than the infrastructure you would need for these large big boxes that maybe had come, in the past. So I'll put together a list. I see where you're going with that.
Hey, what do you have, what's the probability, and of course I took your class, I was down in Houston.
Sure.
But what is the probability of getting like a Whole Foods? I mean, as far as, we do have the millennials, that's like the hip, you know that if you've been down in, Hewlin, I think they got Whole Foods down there,
Yeah.
and that's geared more towards your millennials.
Yeah.
Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's.
But I like Whole Foods, just like they're.
So your probability of getting them jumps because your incomes are over 100,000. Now, basically any community that's less than 100,000 or trader that's less than 100,000 income, you can pretty much scratch that type of retailer. You're talking about right now, Trader Joe's, Whole Foods. You'll notice this though, you never see Whole Foods locate by themselves.
I know, they go with REI and all
they're
the
all
other
going to
things.
be packaged. That's why that's why I'm saying we got to focus on those developers. So if we can land a developer that could make something happen like this, your probability of getting something like that jumps tremendously.
Yeah, that's one thing I was looking at with Whole Foods. You got REI, that whole little concept that they have down there. It seems that they're staying together and moving. Is that? I mean, have you had an opportunity to approach those guys?
So we haven't yet, and I think it's a little early, to be honest with you, to approach them because they typically like to see a little bit more development in place in the community before they locate there. But we absolutely can, and we can see what they say.
The reason I say that is
Sure.
I think of Walsh, and I think of things that are. I mean, we
I like where you're going with that. Yeah.
We have Walsh, and then we have another one that we're talking with. I mean, as far as communication, what we're doing, other things could fill in the gap between that.
I agree.
So I mean, you've got and we know that the rooftops is what's going to drive this, and so that's the only thing.
Where I see the real opportunity is in the mixed use development.
Yeah.
That's what's expanded everywhere. I think with the incomes you have, mixed use is the where it's going to go. Even if you look down on like West 7th and all of those areas there, it's all driven by mixed use.
We're going to have like a micro type thing of it. That's going to be south of where Pleasant Tacos is.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got that.
So you've already got that happening.
Yeah.
So
that's a component of it.
So we haven't talked to them yet, but we can. I mean, your incomes help get you in the mix at least to talk to them.
What about any electronics?
No. There's nobody
It's almost like
doing
a
anything right
bookstore.
now.
Expanding.
What's that?
It's almost like a bookstore.
Yeah. So Best Buy is expanding again. I just read an article that they're about to start expanding. Because of that, maybe something like that, if we can get a larger development there, people are having trouble getting into that. They're having to you got Fry's that has a couple of locations in the metro market. They're looking for. I mean, their site has to be AAA plus best site you've ever seen type site right now. I mean, there's going to be some new retailers. I mean, we're always trying to keep up with who's coming in. There's going to be some new retailers expanding. Amazon's about to come out with a new electronics store.
That's pretty cool. Tell them about that one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I've seen.
Is that where you go in and just take your phone and just...
So that's.
I kind of I shared your story.
Oh, you did? Okay. So Colin and I, yes, it's like that. You can walk in. I have the app. What's it called? Is it Amazon Go? Or Amazon Go, I think is what it is. You click the app and you go in there and you just pick up what you need. And I don't know how it works, but somehow it knows what you have when you walk out. And you don't have to go through a cash register or anything.
God, I saw those. They had groceries.
Yeah. We went into one in Seattle, 6 months ago maybe, and I kind of felt like I was stealing something. I'm like, they have the doors that open, so you walk, like you're getting on the monorail in Las Vegas, so you get to walk up in there and go in. It's like, is it going to open or what's going to happen here? So, but yeah, so that's possibly. I mean, there's a lot of new things happening.
We see what Kohl's is doing with Amazon.
Yeah.
They're doing the returns in store now.
So Kohl's is doing that. Kohl's is shrinking the size of their existing stores. So I've heard that there's a location to the west of y'all that's about to cut the size of its location in half. So you're seeing that.
Wow. Evelyn, really?
Brock.
So you're seeing where they're cutting the size of their stores down and doing more. You know, a lot of these retailers are doing that, but they're not going away. That's the key. They're just changing up the way they're doing business.
Yeah.
I mean, Charming Charlie's, if y'all are familiar with that, like
Oh, yeah, that'd be fun.
the accessories.
It's an accessory. It's all women's
We've
stuff.
known, like, when things like jewelry and accessories and stuff like that, we've known that's been coming for years. They've been closing stores for years, and those
Yeah.
sort of things, but they just got upside down with how many stores they have and those sort of things. So I mentioned the ICSC, the conferences that we're going to. The newest one, or the quickest one coming up, is August 21st in Austin. Are you planning on being there?
Now that you show me the exact date, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right.
What day was it?
August 21st.
August 21st. Oh, that's coming up quick.
So it's coming up quick. It's at the JW Marriott in Austin. What I like about that conference, I say conference, it's a trade show where you go talk to retailers and restaurants. It's only a day, and you can actually accomplish everything in a day. So you don't have to be out there 3 days, but you can accomplish it pretty quickly.
Now, the Red River, we were going to go back to that in January, and I've been trying to get a hold of someone because we wanted a better table
Better
side.
booth? Okay.
Nobody will return my. Okay, we keep if somebody's called me back, we're missing, and I'm wondering, do you think they're waiting? Today was the deadline to.
Probably so, to renew your booth that you had previously.
And I tried to call them earlier and I couldn't get anybody. So just call them Monday, you think, and
Yeah,
say,
and
hey, we just want a better space.
And I can connect you also. If
Okay.
I call them on Monday, if they don't, just shoot me a quick email and I can connect you with you on that.
Okay, all right, because we just like to get something more.
Better,
Yeah.
Because y'all were off on that.
More
We were in the
traffic.
corner.
Yeah.
Baby in a corner.
Yes. Yes. So
So I keep hearing you keep coming back to it. We got to get that developer. We got to get that developer. We got to get that developer. What's the strategy to get that developer?
Sure. So just like we're going after retailers, we're going after developers. So I've got a list of 50 developers that we've targeted for Willow Park. Basically, developers that are doing deals in Texas or the surrounding states right here that are active and fit into that 15 to 20 acre category we've talked about, fit into the types of retailers we talked about. So that's who we're focused on, is that list of 50 developers. And then
Walk me through that. How does that work? Do I drive out to Lubbock and go to Canyon West and
We
talk
might.
to La Vega?
Yeah,
Or,
so what we're starting with is we've sent emails, and those that are interested typically will email us back initially. So the Guerrero Ventures reached out to us. We then followed up with a phone call or in-person meeting. So we're getting to the point with some of these developers where it's time to have an in-person meeting. So anytime we can get them to Willow Park, I like that better. If they can jump in the truck, with you and I, we can pitch it, or whoever. We can pitch it quicker. So that's the goal here, and especially going forward is let's get them to the market here. If we've got to drive into Dallas or we've got to drive somewhere else, we'll do it. But can we get them to the market? That's the key.
boots on the ground when they're there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just like you gave me the tour.
Yeah.
The 2-hour tour we did all around.
And you come back, we've added a whole lot more.
Yeah, so there's more happening. That's what we want them to see is what's going on there.
So what we've got going on with the emergency room / hospital area over there,
Right.
is that an attraction for some of these developers? They not really play into it at all?
So I didn't talk about it, but we ran a cell phone analysis on the medical center there.
Yeah.
And people will drive further distances for medical services, typically, than they will for retail and restaurants. So we're using that to your favor. And that's one of the ways we came up with the trade area. But we know there's always going to be people there. We know during the day there will be people there. At night they'll be there. So retailers, especially restaurants, like to locate around medical areas because they know there will be people there. So that's one of the main kind of focuses we've had is looking at what the draw is for them.
Okay, now does any of your analysis tell us how many hotel rooms we should have in our city?
Hotel rooms, the number of rooms is not something we focused on. to be honest with you. We have been going after and talking to hotels on your behalf and looking at some different things. I can't think of the name of the group that I just recently talked to, but we did not do a hotel feasibility study. Typically, it's a hotel feasibility study that will come in and say how many people or how many rooms can you support? Is it at 80? Is it 120 rooms? So our focus is more going after the hotel and getting them interested in coming to the market, but not specific amount of rooms.
Okay.
Hopefully you didn't cover this when I stepped out, but are they interested in housing for employees? Is that like the
Like
ability?
workforce housing, or
Yeah.
just affordable housing? I guess.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So if you're going to bring, well, let's say an Amazon, distribution center, because that does require a lot of
Yeah, I mean,
workforce. Is that something that retail type people that we're looking at are concerned with? Is that an issue that they discuss or?
It hasn't been an issue we've discussed yet, but it always does come up.
Okay.
Affordable housing, workforce housing, those sort of things. The thing that you have going for you that other markets don't have is you're close. You've got a lot around, a lot close by. So within an hour,
Right.
45 minutes,
By
you've
20
got all
issues.
types of housing
Mhm.
that can
Right.
fit that. So
Different ranges.
yeah, different ranges of housing that'll fit that. So one, I mentioned we're working in Fredericksburg, and we're having a really big issue in Fredericksburg with affordable and workforce housing for who we're trying to bring in there, because the average home price in Fredericksburg right now is like 450, 500,000, but they don't have anything around them. So there is no affordable housing. That's what you have is within an hour or 45 minutes, you've got all different ranges, which some of these that are more rural communities don't actually have.
I know you talked about the younger, driving down the average age in the area, but what about the older community? I mean, if we've got parts of our city, young families want to live in the Alito School District. The school district kind of cuts through our city.
Right.
So part of, that may be an interest is older citizens moving here to downsize into patio homes and something like that. Are there retail opportunities to that market segment that we should be looking at as well, if that's something we want to consider?
Yeah, it's definitely not an area that we've forgotten about or not focused on, but coming up with those, we're not looking at just the millennials, we're looking at the different age groups, because you're right, when you look at baby boomers and older, you're actually seeing an increase in that population as well in your trade areas. So you've got millennials that are growing, and then you've got baby boomers and older that are growing in the community. So we realistically have to look at both of those categories. So when it comes to even like restaurants, we're looking at some of those restaurants that, I don't want to say older population, but a little bit older population is starting to look at some of those different types of restaurants.
Yeah, I mean, this probably isn't the right place for this conversation, but we got a lot of residents that have large properties that, and I think a lot of them are considering a move to a smaller, downsizing to something smaller, and want to stay in the area, but what's enticing them to stay here, and what's an opportunity for them?
Yeah. So we are looking at that. I don't have our prospect list up here, but there are a lot of prospects on this list that fit, kind of all age groups and kind of what we're looking for. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What's your gut feelings as when we might be able to nail something down?
So Brian and I talked about that the other day. I'm hoping 3 to 6 months.
Oh, really?
Completely honestly, is that when we can nail,
De La Vega down?
Yeah.
When you say nail down, we're talking
like put something under contract and hopefully go out to see what interest can be had.
Now that's a contract with the city or the realtor? Or
no, with the real estate, with the property.
That's what I'm talking
The
about.
developer and real estate.
Yeah. Okay.
And they start going after them.
the city really doesn't have a role.
Not until
I mean, we're kind of a matchmaker, but we really don't have a role after that.
I agree.
Okay.
That's my. I don't get anything from, over exaggerating that or anything. But I think 3 to 6 months. I think is realistic. Honestly, the last 6-9 months have been focused on awareness, getting people to understand Willow Park, where Willow Park is, getting the information to them, and now we're at that next level where it's kind of fast and furious. Get them to the market to look at the sites, get them everything they need so they can make a decision.
There's people in Fort Worth don't know where Willow Park is.
Oh, no.
I didn't know where Willow Park was until I met my wife.
I didn't know where
They still don't.
So I hate to keep hyping on that, but a lot of these real estate
I understand.
People that we talked to didn't know where it is, so they do now. A lot of them do
The
now.
only reason they know where Alito is because school district.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
They know Alito School District.
yeah.
football,
Yeah.
so.
My brother knew the stadium, and he doesn't even live in North Texas. I mean, he follows high school
really?
football, but he
Wow.
knew the Alito Stadium because he's traveled through here. But
Is it safe to say we have an identity crisis? We have an identity issue of
Or an identity opportunity.
Yeah.
that's how you're always supposed to put it.
So,
So branding is essential in my mind. I mean, we're going to have to stretch but like our logo, our message, I've likened
What sets
Willow
you
Park.
apart from everywhere else?
I've likened Willow Park to a woman whose husband's taking her out to eat, and he asks her, "What do you want?" And she says, "I don't care." And then he starts listing stuff off, and she goes, "No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that. No, I don't want that." And there's never really been.
yeah.
This
I
is
think
what
there's-
we want.
I mean, realistically, I think there's an opportunity right now, just with all the housing growth, with everything else that's happening. I mean, the Metroplex, Greater Metroplex is really taking off right now. I mean, it has for the last 20 years, but from an economic development standpoint, now's the time to really, really, really get the word out about Willow Park, and we can help with that. But I think some new branding,
Do you have any companies you work with on branding? Some marketing firms or?
Yeah, we worked with several that we can.
Okay,
put
so
you-
we can
you know,
put,
give you
yeah,
some
just get ideas. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that'd be great.
And then, what goes into branding too is wayfinding. So once you're in Willow Park, finding your way throughout Willow Park and where is everything. And
Zip
just-
code.
So,
We need a zip code.
but then I think, entrances to the community, letting people know you're entering the community, entering Willow Park. We do have some of that, but
the branding on the
the
interstate.
branding on the
Yeah.
interstate, those sort of things, all, because think about how many people drive interstations.
Oh, yeah.
You know how much one of those costs?
I'm sure a lot.
Half a minute. About
Is it
half a
really?
minute. Yeah.
Well, 300,000 for one.
For what? Yeah.
For one what?
For monument sign.
For one
Oh.
unit.
So if you're gonna do what Lance Hutchins did, about 300.
Yeah, but how big is that tank gonna be? How many gallons?
That's great. What are we talking about?
I mean, really, it's gonna be right there on the ridge coming into town.
Well,
We might have to get out there and just start laying bricks ourselves.
The tank's gonna be built within 2
to get
years.
to monument size, it's a long process.
Yeah, I mean, the tank's gonna be 2 years. Yeah, let's
They've got to
Get a
approve
mural.
all that. and
get it.
You don't want to mess up, because I know a community
Yeah,
that's
see
put one
where my
in,
garage
they came
is.
down and took that thing down right
We
away.
gotta go
Oh, yeah.
now.
But something we already paid for is we've got some really cool police people, and they can park there and do a speed.
Actually, the people who don't live in Willow Park, that's only reason they know Willow Park. Like, I got a ticket one time.
I forgot, yeah.
Invisible police card right now too.
Yeah.
There's a sign going up on I-20. We've already leased it for a year. It says, "Feel free to speed. We need the revenue."
You know, there we go. No, it's our fire truck that's on there all the time.
Just to kind of wrap this up real quick, I mean, we work all over the country. Kyle and I focus mostly on the Texas area. I mean, from the coast up to far north Texas, and you've got everything. You've got the incomes, you've got the growth, you've got the traffic counts. I mean, it's just all putting it together. And I think I don't want to hype too much on finding a developer, but I mean, I do think that is the key here. We'll have some wins. Starbucks. Y'all already had a win with Starbucks coming in and those sort of things. You have some of those one-offs, but in order to make something really happen, a really big impact is going to be a development. So that's why we're focused on developers. So as we start going to these trade shows that are coming up here quickly, and you're going to hear a lot about developers going forward. Doesn't mean we're forgetting about the retailers, but we see the opportunity. We see the need to focus on that. So
Well, I think if this same group that had been here 20 years ago, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
I agree. I agree.
So we're kind of like the lady this morning from Roanoke. We're almost there. We're not quite there yet, but we're getting there.
Yeah. No, I we easily can see what y'all are doing to be progressive and make these things happen and those sort of things. So I say keep it up.
It's not for lack of effort.
No, absolutely. And we're excited to be part of the team because I mean we see the opportunity.
Good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Are we gonna get a copy of the presentation?
Yes,
To Ryan.
Rose.
I think Ryan, I sent it.
Oh, to me.
Rose.
You sent it to me.
All right,
Well,
there we
yeah,
go.
we'll get you a copy of it, hard
Yeah,
copy
so-
and electronic.
Are we taking a break?
Okay.
Can we take?
Yeah, we're taking a break.
Okay.